All right, so I've got some requests to start adding kits to my website. So I'm going to go ahead and do a video on how to assemble a case for a Pioneer SX-580 or 680. So the case is the same. And so this will be a kit available on my website, atoaudio.com. And this is a much affordable option for people who don't mind doing some of the labor themselves, and they want to save some money by putting it together themselves and not having me put it together. So if you get this kit, you'll be able to select what top you want for it. And so the customer here has requested the top with just the vent lines and the Pioneer word and logo. And so you can see what options I have on the website. So you'll get that top ready to go just like this. You'll also get a side brace that will be glued in, 4 pieces of wood banding, and then both the left and right sides. And so to assemble this, all you're going to need is some wood glue. Now I'm going to use some pin nails for my top because I like to have that to hold in place while it's gluing down, and I do recommend that. But if you don't have that, it's not absolutely critical that you have it. You could get by with just, if you want to make sure it didn't move, putting some masking tape on the joints. And basically we're going to use our stereo. In this case I've got the Pioneer SX-680 here as basically the clamp that's going to hold this all together while the glue sets. And once we do that, then you should be good to go. And so the nice benefit to doing that is that you don't have to have any special tools or anything, and also that you know that once you put it on there that it'll fit, and it should go on exactly the way that you glued it together on. And so all we have to do is we'll go ahead and remove the screws off of our case, and then we'll be able to remove that case. And from there we'll go ahead and attach our left and right sides with the screws. I would suggest leaving these a little loose at first. Let me go ahead and change the camera view here so you guys can get a good view. So I wouldn't tighten them all the way down yet. Leave it a little bit loose until you know what the final position is going to be. Trying not to get in the camera view here for you guys, but y'all get the idea. We're just going to screw these sides on. And so once I've got it loosely on there, I can go ahead and just kind of make any adjustments I need, and I can make sure my top fits. And so the top should just lay right in the channels here, and then slide forward, and it should be roughly flush in the back end here. And sometimes it won't be perfectly flush, and that's okay. We can sand it down to that perfect flush. But that's kind of what it should look like. So all we have to do now that we've tested for fitment, guys, is put some glue along these edges and then go ahead and tack this in. So let me go ahead and get my nailer set up and the glue out, and we'll be right back. All right, so here we are back, and so I've got my wood glue and I've got my pin nailer. Now my pin nailer, I'm using I think 3/4 inch pin nails, and so like I said, that's not necessary. If you want to just use wood glue and let it set, you can, but I'm going to do that because I just like giving it a little bit of extra rigidity while it's gluing up and make sure it doesn't move. And so we're just going to put a bead of glue in these channels here and here. Don't be too generous, but don't be stingy either. You want to do just right so you get a good squeeze out. And so we'll put that in there, lay our top down, and then I'll shoot a couple pins in it to make sure everything stays in place. From there, it's really just let it dry overnight. And so then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish up the finishing touches on the case, and this thing will be ready for stain. So let's go ahead and get our wood glue. I'm using Type Bond 2 wood glue here, but any wood glue will do. And then we'll just go ahead and set our top in. And push it all the way to the front there so everything aligns. And from there, we're ready to go ahead and shoot our pin. So I'm going to kind of make sure that everything's lined up, and I'm going to shoot my first pin. Now when I do my pin nail, guys, I'm not going straight down. I'm kind of angling it into the side piece a little bit so I hit a little more meat. And so I'll just do that there. Come back to this other side and make sure I've got everything lined up. And I'll do the exact same thing. You don't have to put a lot, you just need to put some to hold it. I like to do a couple on the sides and then maybe one or two towards the middle. And as I'm doing this with a pin nail, I'm kind of pushing down just to kind of make sure it seats really well. And so this squeeze out here, guys, you can let this dry if you want to and then come back and scrape it. But we're going to be putting that wood banding over this edge at some point. And so I just want to make sure it's nice and clean. So I'm just going to take a towel and kind of just wipe it. You want to be careful when you do this because you don't want this glue to get too far over here into the wood grain, because then when you go to stain, it may not stain correctly. The stain may not take. So that's it for now, guys. All we're going to do now is kind of set this off to the side, go on to another project, and we'll let this glue dry. And so realistically, I would probably let yours dry overnight. You can work with it sooner if you do this in the morning and then you come back to it in the afternoon. It should be dry depending on the temperature where you live at. I'm here in Florida, so glue dries pretty quick here. But I would recommend letting this dry overnight because since we haven't put the cross member in yet, it will not have that much rigidity. And so the glue has a chance to break. So I'd let this glue overnight. So we're going to set this off to the side, and we'll be back tomorrow when the glue is dried for the next steps. All right, welcome back. It's the next day. The glue is dried very well, had overnight to dry, so we can go ahead and remove this from the stereo and push the stereo out the way. And as you can tell, we've got a lot more rigidity now that the glue is dried. So we still have a few things left to this before we can stain and finish it. We're going to put in a cross member, and then we also have the wood banding that's going to go on the top here and on the front of the case. And so to put this wood banding on, all you need is an iron, and then we'll just glue this cross member in. So you can shoot some pin nails into this if you want to, but if you just want to let it sit with glue, so this will probably be the last thing we do because we'll just leave the case upside down, set this in with glue, and then leave it to dry. So the very first thing we're going to do, guys, is put on this wood banding. So we'll just go ahead and set this cross member off to the side. And like I said, all we're going to need is an iron. So we'll go ahead and work on these top pieces first. And what you want to do is align it with the edge of the wood in the front and then also in the back. And so it doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of close. So we can just eyeball it. Once we get that, we'll just take our iron and go ahead and apply the heat. And you want to make sure you leave the iron in place long enough to melt the glue because we want to make sure we get a really good bond. But you don't want to leave it in one place too long because you don't want to burn the wood. And honestly, that's kind of hard to do. So if you burn the wood, you've left it in place way too long. So once you feel that you've got a good firm bond, you can kind of let it set. I usually have a roller and I'll roll this out just to make sure it doesn't release as the glue is drying. In fact, let me grab that real quick. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just come back over this. It's not necessary, it's just kind of an added step that I do. If you want to, what you could do is just do it and then flip it over and just apply some pressure as the temperature comes back down and it dries. And you can kind of just pull up on the edges here and see if it pulls up. And so this is not pulling up, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll go ahead and do this next side. We're going to do the same thing. Just kind of make sure we've got our piece lined up with where the wood is. and then we'll just go back and forth with the iron until we feel comfortable that we've got the glue nice and melted. This wood banding really opens up some possibilities when you're woodworking. You know, obviously it's not as durable as solid wood, but one of the reasons I use plywood in my cases is because it's dimensionally stable. A lot of times what you'll see when you use solid wood is that you'll get cupping, and then it can change shape and size depending on the humidity of the room it's in, or you know, if it's being outside, etc. And over time that movement back and forth can be detrimental to the case. So plywood is a much better choice, I believe. So now that we have the top pieces on, we need to go ahead and trim this down to the side before we can put on the front pieces of this. And to do that, all I'm going to use is an X-Acto knife. And so you want to make sure yours is clean, doesn't have anything gummed up on it. And that's all I'm going to use. Pretty simple process here. I'm just going to run my blade straight across here. On the front and back of the case. And you want to make sure that you cut all the way through the wood fibers. You don't want to break the wood fibers and then basically you would have to start all over again. So take your time and do it. And also be mindful of where you're putting your X-Acto knife. You don't want to scar or scratch the wood that you're working on. Now when you do this, the sides that go with the grain of the wood banding, it's a lot easier to do because it just comes apart a lot easier. So that's one side. And that's all you have to do. Now to do the finishing touches on this, I would actually take some sandpaper and sand this nice and smooth. But let's go ahead and do our other side first. And we're just going to repeat the process. Take your time. It's not a rush. You know, in the kit you only get one set, so you don't want to mess it up. But if for some reason you do mess it up, you can always reach back out to me and we can get some more wood banding out to you. And that just comes right across. So if we flip it back upside down, you can see that most of the work is already done. It's already starting to look a lot better. So again, to clean up the edges, we'll just do some sandpaper. And so what I would recommend, like on these back edges, anytime you're going with it, don't go against the grain this way, go down with it, because you don't want to splinter it up and then basically chip. And then it could leave a nasty edge on it. So go down like this to get it nice and smooth. Now once you've got it nice and smooth, you can go this way. You just don't want to start off that way. On the front here, you may have just, after you cut, you may just have just a little bit of a fuzz. So we want to make sure that we get that off, or else the wood banding that we're going to put on the front may not sit flush with the wood. So it doesn't take up much, and you don't want to round the edges. You just want to get it just smooth enough to be able to put on the next piece of wood banding. And that's all we got to do right there, guys. And that's it. We still have to clean up these edges, but we'll do that after we put on this front pieces. And so I'm just going to put it up like this. We'll do the exact same thing. We're going to line it up with that outer edge, is what I like to do. And we'll apply the iron. And while that's drying, we'll roll it. And once that glue solidifies, you've got it all set. Do the same thing. Now the wood banding, if you put too much pressure on your iron while you're putting it, the wood banding will have a tendency to move, so just kind of be aware of that. You want to try to keep the wood banding in the same place that you put it to make sure it all aligns. And really, I like to align it with this outer edge. That way I'm cleaning up the inside edge, which no one's going to see really when the case is on. Okay, now that we've got that done, we're going to do the same process with the X-Acto knife, trimming up the excess. You know, obviously being mindful of the edges, like this edge I'm doing now, that's going to be the front facing edge. Now this will be hard to see, but I'm going to run my knife along this edge here, but on this side. And so you guys can't see it because of the angle, but all I'm doing is doing that same process with my X-Acto knife. If I was left-handed, I'd probably be able to do this and you guys could see it, but I'm not. But you guys will be able to see it on this side. So I'm not applying a huge amount of force to my X-Acto knife when I'm doing this, and I'm taking several passes, and so that's just to make sure that I'm not going to slip, because if you slip on this you can scratch the case or scratch the wood banding. So just take your time and then run your X-Acto knife right on the edge, because the nicer trim job you get, the less sanding you're going to have to do. And this glue that comes on this wood banding is kind of nasty. And without much work, guys, we've got this thing looking already 10 times better. So the only thing left now, guys, is to take our sandpaper, sand these edges smooth here, up front, and then along here, and this thing is ready to rock and roll. Now, I will tell you a secret to this is, if you do woodworking, you'll know what this is, and this is basically to clean up your sandpaper. And so after you've used the sandpaper, this will kind of get all the gum out of it and just kind of revitalize or add some life to that sandpaper. Well, what I found is that when I'm doing this, sanding the case and getting the glue in the sandpaper, and I'm cleaning the sandpaper, I thought, well, maybe this would actually take some of the glue off the wood, and it does. So if you have one of these and you've done a good trim job, you can use this and run it up and down the piece of the wood, and that'll actually help get a lot of the glue out, which will make it easier for you to sand, because now it's not having to go through all that glue. So just a super cool trick that I found while I'm doing this. So we've got to completely sand this down, and then we still got to put in this cross member. So I'm going to go ahead and sand this and get it ready to put the cross member in. We'll come back here in a few minutes after I've got this all sanded out, and you guys can see me put in this cross member, and then we'll go from there. So I'll be back in just a second. All right, so I just got done sanding this all down, guys. It feels good and looks good. You know, looking good is one thing, but when you can run your fingers around it and everything feels smooth, there's no edges that get caught, that's when you know you've got a good sand job. And the secret to a good finish is not skimping on taking the time to do a proper sand. So I sanded this up to 320 grit, and so everything's nice and smooth. So all we have to do now is put in our glue in our cross member, and this thing is ready to get. Okay guys, I'm gonna have to apologize. My camera decided to dip out on me, but basically I just went ahead and laid this cross member in, and so I just put a thin bead of glue on it and I just set it in. Make sure you get the glue all the way across, and then on the edges, outside edges of the cross member as well. And that's just going to add some extra rigidity to it. You're probably not 100% necessary, but that little piece of wood will actually add a lot more rigidity to it, and you'll be surprised. and give it some stability. And so you could put some pin nails in this if you wanted to, but I'm just going to let the glue dry just the way it is, and probably in a few hours this thing will be ready to move around. So again, this is the process you will do if you decide to buy one of these kits for the Pioneer SX-580 and 680. It'll fit both of those receivers. So if you decide to buy this kit, this is the process to assemble it. And if you got any questions on the assembly process and you buy one of these kits, just reach out to me through the website. You can do that through my Gmail, atoaudio1@gmail.com, or there's also my contact information on the website as well. So as always, if you have any questions, make sure to leave them down in the comment field. If you guys want to see me add more kits to my website for other receivers, leave that in the comments field as well. Maybe if I get a bunch of requests for a certain kit, I'll go ahead and take the time to do a video and add a kit to the website for that receiver as well. I find that these kits are very affordable options for people who don't mind doing a little work in assembling it themselves, and it also saves me time out in the shop, because the assembly process does take a little bit of time, especially when you're doing as many as I am. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.